was greater, Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, or Martin Luther King? There's something that I always try to remember when reading about great men in history. All of them only became great by standing on the shoulders of the giants that came before them. Take for instance Gandhi. He had a rather famous pimple back in 1909. The famous Russian writer and thinker Leo Tolstoy. The two men exchanged several letters from 1909 until late 1910. The last letter by Tolstoy dating from shortly before his death. 1. Many of Gandhi's ideas weren't necessarily his own. They were inspired by Tolstoy, directly, indirectly. Gandhi was actively seeking guidance from those older and wiser than him. And, in turn, both Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King came to study the words of Gandhi, who himself was also inspired by others. This is exactly why I feel it is foolish to argue over who is supposedly greater than the other. I've written about the moral failings and transgressions of Gandhi in past answers. Tolstoy had his own. He even famously admitted to his wife on the eve of their wedding to having fathered an out-of-wedlock son by his maid. His wife, moved by his honesty, decided to go through with the wedding anyway. In the past, I've often written rather negatively about the moral failings of historical figures. And, in hindsight, it seems rather silly and pointless. Because why should someone's weaknesses distract from the message he or she stands for? Gandhi moved to South Africa as a young man and was a lawyer in the Transvaal region for years, which is why Mandela was familiar with him. They both had strong ties to the same country. And South Africa has historically had a large and vibrant Indian community. Many of Mandela's fellow activists against apartheid were, in fact, Indian. Some of those Indian activists a young Mandela worked alongside of had personally known Gandhi back in the day. There's only a few degrees of separation between Tolstoy, Gandhi, and Mandela. I don't know who was greater, and I don't really care to argue for one figure's superiority over the others. Gandhi, Mandela, and MLK were all fascinating men, driven men, passionate men, flawed men, men with issues, and men dedicated to causes for which they were willing to lay down their lives. I'm just a writer on Quora. How could I judge their merits when my own are so insignificant in comparison?